Hello and welcome to How to Make Partner podcast. Are you running on fumes? Relying on caffeine to just get through the day? Does the idea of working another 16-hour day or pulling an all-nighter feel like an exception and more like Tuesday? The professional services world can be brutal, and there's often immense pressure, crazy deadlines, and a culture that sometimes seems to equate dedication with sheer hours clocked, pushing self-care way down on the priority list. Maybe you tell yourself, I'll look after myself when this deal closes or when I make partner. Well, what if I told you that mindset, the one that says work targets always trumps your own mental and physical health, is not only unsustainable, but actively hinders your path to partnership? Today, on this podcast video version of the episode, we're talking about why your health isn't a luxury. It's your most critical career asset, especially on the demanding journey to partner. Now, this is a How to Make Partner podcast video edition with me, Heather Townsend, the author of Poised for Partnership and co-author of How to Make Partner and Still Have a Life. In this podcast, I'll be highlighting some of the great stuff in our Progress to Partner Academy. New episodes are released weekly, so press subscribe so you never miss an episode. Right, let's get into this vital topic. Let's think about elite athletes, like a marathon runner preparing for a major race. They don't just train hard, they meticulously optimize their self-care, that sleep, nutrition, rest, for months, even years, to ensure they can perform at their absolute peak when it matters. Now, contrast that with what happens when you're aiming for a partner. You're effectively doing two jobs, smashing your demanding day job and building a practice on top of that. You need to be at your best consistently day after day. Yet instead of optimizing self-care like an athlete, many professionals do the exact opposite. They prioritize work above all else, sacrificing sleep, grabbing unhealthy food on the go, skipping exercise, forgetting to recharge. Does that sound familiar? And here's the problem. You simply cannot sustain peak performance, nor make the significant mindset shifts or step outside of your comfort zone required for partnership if you are physically and mentally exhausted. When you're running on empty, your brain faults to survival mode. Just getting through the day, doing what you've always done. It doesn't have the capacity to think strategically, commercially, or learn new skills or build relationships. But just surviving is not good enough if you genuinely want to progress. Now think about the pressure you're under. There's actually a well-known concept called the pressure versus performance curve. Imagine it as a graph. As pressure increases from low levels, performance goes up. And it goes up to the point where you get to the optimal stress zone where you feel challenged and engaged. But after a certain point, as the pressure keeps rising and becomes overwhelming, performance starts to drop off sharply. That's the burnout zone. Now, as you climb the ranks towards partnership, the pressure inevitably increases. So to handle that high pressure effectively and stay in the high performance zone, you need robust, and I mean robust coping mechanisms. And guess what those coping mechanisms are? They all fall under the umbrella of self-care. Now, when I say self-care, I'm not talking about going on a spa day, although sometimes those are nice. I'm talking about the 4 foundational habits crucial for ongoing wellness and performance. Sleep. We all know that everything feels easier after a good night's sleep, but scientifically, it's vital. Poor sleep, especially REM sleep, impacts serotonin levels, affecting mood and energy. It's when your body's cells heal and recover. Chronic poor sleep is linked to serious long-term health issues, and crucially, managing stress directly impacts sleep quality. Exercise. Our bodies were designed for movement. Regular physical exercise isn't just good for physical health and stamina, it's a powerful stress reducer. Exercise releases serotonin, which enhances mood and clarifies thinking. Ever solved a problem on a walk? Serotonin also helps produce melatonin for better sleep, creating a virtuous cycle. Plus, exercise helps dissipate stress hormones like adrenaline produced by that fight or flight response, so common in high-pressure jobs. Now, nutrition. What you eat and drink directly impacts stress levels. Foods high in caffeine, sugar, and unhealthy fats, like many takeaways and processed meals, can aggravate stress and anxiety. Conversely, highly nutritious food provides the fuel your brain and body need to cope with these high levels of pressure. Relying on caffeine might feel like an essential that everyone does in your firm, but it's actually a stimulant that heightens stress and harms sleep. And then the fourth bit of self-care is recharge time. In a culture that always rewards being always on, deliberately switching off is vital. Taking proper breaks, using your annual leave without working, and spending time on things you genuinely enjoy outside of work. What the book How to Make Partners Have a Life calls feeding your soul builds resilience. Having a meaningful existence outside work helps you cope with the pressure inside work. Now, a useful way to visualize this is the 3 buckets model. Imagine 3 buckets: career, relationships, and self. You only have enough energy, so water each day, to fill perhaps one of the buckets. Be honest. How full is your self bucket typically? For most ambitious professionals I work with, it's practically empty. And when you're tired, you start the day with even less water, meaning all buckets suffer. Those people who successfully make partner and survive long term, they have strategies to keep their buckets, especially the self bucket, sufficiently filled. These strategies aren't nice to have, they are non-negotiable parts of how we operate day to day. So take a moment to reflect. Where are you on that pressure versus performance curve right now? How full is your self-care bucket? What's one small achievable thing you could do this week to invest in one of those 4 pillars: sleep, exercise, nutrition, or recharge? Maybe it's leaving work on work time one night, scheduling a walk at lunchtime, swapping one coffee for a water, or blocking out 30 minutes for something you enjoy. We often think prioritizing self-care is selfish, but prioritizing your health is essential, not selfish. It's the foundation that allows you to sustain the energy and resilience and clear thinking needed for the partnership marathon. So recognizing that relentless grind and prioritizing work above your own well-being is actually detrimental to your partnership goals is a huge step. Building sustainable habits around self-care is what allows you to perform at your best, manage pressure effectively, and have the mental energy for the strategic thinking and behavioral changes required on the path to partner. Now, if you're watching and finding yourself nodding along and thinking, I know I need to do this, but I feel guilty taking time for myself, or I don't know where to start building healthy habits amid the chaos, then in the Progress to Partner Academy, How to Truly Commit to Moving Your Career Forward can provide the right level of support and training for you to make the changes. It helps you unpack those mindset blocks around self-prioritization and gives you practical frameworks like the default diary we've mentioned to build sustainable self-care routines that support rather than detract from your career ambitions. Now, in the show notes, I'll pop a link to buy into the Progress to Partner Academy. And also in the show notes, you'll find the links to my books, Poise of Partnership, How to Make Partners Have a Life, so you can easily find them and buy them on Amazon. And as a thank you for listening, there's also a link for a 10% discount on annual membership for our Progress to Partner Academy, where we offer resources and community support focused on building resilience and sustainable high performance for the long haul. That's it for this video episode of the How to Make Partner podcast. Think about those 4 pillars: sleep, exercise, nutrition, recharge. What's one small investment you can make in your most important career asset, your health, this week? Remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss another week's episode. Thanks for listening.